cold open this week. Nick,
Oh,
we Nick, we started this podcast last year. The name of this podcast is The Year We Started a Podcast. It no longer makes sense.
I agree.
So you mentioned it last podcast, and I kind of blew it off, but I still wanted it to make sense. And so I've made the editorial decision that this is a new podcast.
Oh no, what's the new podcast name?
The Year We Started a Podcast. It's going to feel very similar to the old podcast.
Okay.
Very similar. Lots of the same things. I mean, this will have some new things. Maybe, I don't know, more celebrity guests or more sound effects. What? I mean, I don't know. Like, we need to talk about it. Yeah. We need to figure out what we need to bring to it. Like, we have a whole year to like grow it into that.
Okay. And you know the really nice thing about this being a new podcast that's called The Year We Started the Podcast? I feel like as we're ending 2020, this is kind of like a podcast that's being born like, almost Phoenix-like from the ashes of 2020. At the end of 2020, this Nick? New thing.
I would actually argue that this is the podcast born from the ashes of the previous year's podcast.
That's a good point.
And it shall be referenced hereforth as the podcast born from the ashes of last year's podcast, because 2020, Nick, is behind us. That was this podcast. I'm sorry. I referred to this podcast as the current podcast. It's actually last pod. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to let you know that is the most terrifying jinx that you could ever put on us by saying that on December 30th. I am so afraid of what could happen tomorrow now. Like, you have no.
Like, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be like a nuclear explosion in the Pacific now. We're just gonna have.
You know what, Nick? The problem with doing this joke, this goof here, is like the world is a big place, and there almost certainly will be like terrible December 31st things that happen, and this won't be as funny.
You brought this evil upon us, Jeffrey.
I'm so sorry, guys. I did my best. I thought we were doing a good thing doing this podcast
doing a bit.
together.
It was a good bit, and I.
Yeah. So maybe we should have moved this recording to Friday.
Who knows?
Well, I guess we'll find out. But I do feel like we need to have like the subtext of what this podcast is, because before we didn't really have one. I don't think that you and I are perhaps the most creative duo, especially not on the spot. And I debated whether or not I should put you on the spot or give you some of the options beforehand. But I figure we would rip off our subtitle from other sequels of terrible movies. I don't know, not all actually, as I'm looking at this, mostly terrible movies.
Okay.
And we can use that as our subtitle. So I'm gonna paste that in our show notes here. Hold on.
Ooh, okay. I do like these.
So the year we started a podcast, and then we need to come up with the part after that. And I will say, this may be a thing that we only do the one time a year, because all of these are pretty terrible and off-brand. But I feel like we need to pick one. Maybe we'll reference it occasionally.
I just want to put this out there that you neglected the most important sequel to any film, which is Three Ninjas Kick Back, which is the best sequel title for a film.
Wait, Three Ninjas Okay. Is this the one that has that...
The basketball scene that I made you watch?
No way!
They have a sequel,
That's what
sir.
This is.
Three Ninjas Kick Back.
Okay, so the year we started a podcast, Kick Back. That's...
I do like that one. I will say, however, that I don't want to necessarily take it, but we could definitely call it, I don't know. I don't have anything good, really, but I don't want to necessarily steal it from something, but Three Ninjas Kick, or the year we started the podcast, Kick Back, is pretty good.
Okay, I am almost certain that we will pick that as the subtitle for our brand new hit podcast of the same name of our previous podcast.
Right.
Kickback is pretty freaking good.
I know.
And especially knowing how, and I have to make, like, I say this all the time that I'm going to put it in the show notes. I have to remember to put this in the show notes this time.
Yes, do it.
Okay. I've made this as a separate bolded title here. Are there any, so I'm just going to read through a few of these. Are there any of those, before I do that, that like really feel like they stick out as maybe a second runner, or maybe a competition to kick back.
I don't have a good one. The Secret of the Ooze is good. Because there's
that was my favorite too. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze.
That's a really good one.
I don't know that I've seen it, but I do feel like
I don't think I have.
but
I want to know the secret. I really want to know.
When I said they're very off-brand, I feel like that might be. I don't know, Nick. Is that the most on-brand or off-brand of all of these?
It's pretty on-brand. It's pretty on-brand.
I do feel like Cruise Control's not bad. I mean, sometimes we don't really try that hard, and we just put it up an episode.
What are you talking about? I try so hard.
Or X-Files, I Want to Believe. I
want to believe super fits the December 30th vibe. Like, I want to believe 2021 is going to be the year.
Exactly. Oh, man.
These are all really good. I'm a big fan of this list. I wish there was something we could do with like Podcast with a Vengeance or something. But,
I don't know. The Secret of the Ooze or Kickback, but I feel like Kickback is. I mean, one, that is an amazing movie. Like, again, I promise I will link to it in the show notes. But two. That is so freaking fitting for 2021. Screw you, 2020.
Yeah,
time to kick back.
I agree. I think we're sticking with Kickback. Let's go Kickback.
Yeah, I was getting ready to do the intro. Whew. All right. All right, with that, Nick, hello and welcome to the year we started a podcast. It's a podcast born Phoenix-like from last year's podcast. It's time to kick back. I am your co-host, Jeff.
I'm your other co-host, Nick.
And this is our new podcast,
the brand new one.
Premiere episode.
Unlike that other podcast.
Right, yeah, podcast of the same name. We're a couple of friends, half a continent apart. They want to come together on a new podcast and talk about the things that are fun and interesting to us. Woo. Nick, okay, so I have a topic, a couple topics actually that I want to start off with. But the first thing, on a prior, maybe a couple episodes ago, we talked about bubbly drinks and our affinity for different varieties of them. Yes. And I mentioned how much I liked Spindrift. And since then, I don't even remember if it was at the time or if it was afterwards. I think it was even before. So I bought like $100 worth of Spindrift at one point when Amazon finally. I think I mentioned this probably on the podcast, but they came into stock finally, and I could get them at a reasonable price for Kansas prices. Apparently, it's super cheap to get everything in California off of Amazon, you jerks. So here's the deal. I thought what was as much Spindrift as a single household could possibly reasonably buy in a calendar year. In the course of a couple days. And I have since received so many ads for Spindrift, Nick. And I don't know how to tell Google, I can't buy any more Spindrift. I don't have any more room in my garage.
Oh my God.
My entire, I have Nick, I have a refrigerator in our basement. We have a refrigerator in our in our kitchen. And we inherited a free refrigerator to go in our garage. Yeah. Which is a lot of refrigerator, but it's super nice because then you can buy lots of things in bulk. Our inside refrigerator has basically what our day-to-day is, and our garage refrigerator is basically just beverages. And Nick, it is entirely filled to the brim with drinks ready to go. And we have a pile, I don't know, waist high of boxes of Spindrift because I went crazy one day and bought all the Spindrift. Nick, God. There's no way we could possibly
believe in yourself. You can do it.
Right, we're gonna be on an ABC special of hoarders of Spindrift if we do any more. like I'm perfectly fine being advertised to Google, but like maybe allow me an option to say I done already bought all of it. Like, like
I have always wondered that. I have always wondered that. You know, I love that you get your advertisement for something. Like I get I don't buy that many shoes, but like if I need to buy a shoe online, you like look around, make a purchase for a shoe, and then it's like all of a sudden the world is like, hey, bruh, I know you just bought some shoes, but did you know about these other shoes that are the same shoe that you already bought? You want to buy another pair of that exact same shoe. Yeah. I have like a pair of boots that like I have been getting the same advertisement for the same pair of boots that I currently own and purchased already online. And for like a year.
I totally support, you know, getting everybody to go out and vote, but I really wanted the same thing because I voted early. Like, is there any way I can indicate to social media, Google, and the rest of the internet, like, I already did it. Like, I'm good, guys. Like, you got me. Hit me up in 2 years. Like, we're good. Like, we'll do it again next time. But
you're covered. It's good for now.
There's other advertising dollars that could be better well spent than getting me to go vote. I already did.
My other one that I get a lot is I have a Discord channel with a bunch of friends, and not all of them are especially like tech savvy, and for some reason like they like to ask me and one other person who's in that group for help with purchasing computers, and in the last like 2 years they've all asked me a bunch of questions. So like, you know, I've Googled a lot of these like laptops that they like ask me about and everything. Mm-hmm. So like I've just got MSI laptop advertisements out the wazoo. Like, just everywhere I go, it's just like, did you know about this MSI laptop? It's very good, but also we have this other model that's also an MSI laptop. And like, I don't want this. I Googled it one time, man.
Touche, internet. Touche.
Truth. I deserve this.
I feel like I'm the founder of the segment, but you are now our current contributor this week.
I am.
This week I hurt myself.
This week I hurt myself. Yeah. So I sent you a photo of my injury from today.
You did. Yeah.
It's not actually super bad. However, I basically have a forearm that is just entirely bloodied up and scratched and cut up.
Is that how recent is this injury? Because like that looked rough.
It's 7:00 now. It's about 7 hours old. That's how old that injury is.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Right.
Fresh. Yeah.
Right off the press. Right off the old whatever you fell onto.
And you actually got the cleaned up version. That was probably 6 hours after I cleaned it a couple of times with wet rags and everything. I just didn't have the wherewithal to take a picture on the side of the road.
It's
side of the
much
trail.
appreciated. Much appreciated.
Yeah. So I won't fill this segment up forever with mountain bike injuries because you guys would just get bored of me. I don't actually fall that often, but this one I thought this one was relatively funny because it's like a perfect convergence of bad things happening, a series of unfortunate events leading to me falling and just like destroying the skin of my arm. I'm actually not in any serious pain, and I don't want to describe my arm too much and be gross and gory or whatever, but so what happened is my bike is currently in the shop with some brake issue. It's got a brake warranty issue. It won't hold. It's the cap for the fluid in the brake was stripped. Like the cap is a screw, and the screw is stripped, and therefore when I bled it cannot be resealed, so can't use the brake.
Seems like something that you would want your brakes to be able to do,
right?
Is to have the fluid in the brake system to be in the brake system.
Exactly. Okay. So currently, bike is in the shop. Today I went out and rode with my dad and my brother-in-law, and I used my dad's bike, which, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that I am a ninja from a movie that is one with his bike, the way that the ninja is one with their sword. But, you're used to your bike. You're used to the dimensions of your bike and the geometry of your bike.
Sure.
And my dad's bike is a bike that has, it compresses more with its suspension. It has more suspension or longer travel suspension. So it compresses more and gets lower. And it also starts slower. And he is shorter than me, so he has a smaller size bike. I don't know for sure if that contributes to the geometry of the bottom bracket, which is like...
So I'm dumb. So like when you say the suspension travels more, that means like if you go over a bump, you're going to move more than you would on a firmer suspension.
Or
right?
the bike itself would move more, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So like basically compressing downward, right?
Okay.
The bike is yeah.
So does that Again, still dumb. So does that mean that is a smoother ride or a less smooth ride?
Smoother ride.
Smoother ride. Okay, cool.
What was the other thing? Oh, the other thing is, so my arm is destroyed. I have elbow pads that I usually ride with, but they have started to stretch out just a little bit too much, and they basically flop around on my arms and don't cover anything anymore except for my hands, which is not useful and also distracting. And I have put off reordering elbow pads because my wife basically has continually like hinted to me that she was going to order me elbow pads. My wife and my mother both conspired to buy me new elbow pads and knee pads for Christmas, which is super nice. However, they mixed up who was doing what. So I have two of these identical knee pads, and I have been purposefully putting off ordering new elbow pads.
Nick, so why didn't you wear the knee pads on your arms?
Great question. I think they wouldn't have fit. I'm not positive, but no, they wouldn't have fit.
Did you try?
I did not try. That is a very good point.
See, look, this is on you.
This is on me.
I felt like you were getting ready to blame your sweet, sweet mother or sweet, sweet wife.
No.
Everything I know about either of them, they seem like great people. So I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with having some knee pads.
I could have just had
your elbows.
That's a good point. Hell, they're bigger. They'd cover more. This is useful.
Right.
So,
and you would be so shamed that you wouldn't have gone outside in the first place. Thus, be safe.
That's a very good point too. I just have to embarrass myself further. Although that's actually not true, Jeff. You know me well enough to know I don't have any shame. So,
with that in mind, continue.
Yeah, so this is like one of like 3 rides I've ever had where I'm not wearing freaking elbow pads. I'm usually like, hey, I'm gonna fall eventually. I'm gonna get scraped up. Better to just have the pads, even if they're hot or annoying or whatever it is. But yeah, put off buying new pads. This is like 3 rides of me not using them. And I'm riding my dad's bike, and there's this one section of trail on this trail that I've hit a million times, and I've pedaled through this exact same section a million times, but where the grade of the trail changes pretty dramatically. It's like you swoop downward and then instantly have to start pedaling upward and it's like a relatively steep section of trail, so you want a lot of speed and you want to be pedaling into it. Well, on my dad's bike, and maybe it's a fluke and maybe it's not because it's my dad's bike, but on my dad's bike, I'm significantly lower. And I clipped a pedal on a rock going like 20 miles an hour and just went straight over the edge, right onto my arms, which is all good. But like, it's just a series of unfortunate events of like, my wife wanting to be nice and get me something that I would use, but then just having a small mix up, which is no big deal. And then me being lazy about like, it's so annoying riding with these elbow pads. And like the one ride I'm not on my own bike where I know that I would clear that section, and having that stupid confidence of being like, I'm on a trail that's really easy and I'm totally comfortable doing it, and then you go over the edge.
It all sounded like a thing that I was happy to make fun of you for until you described like hitting the pedal on rock and launching yourself presumably. Like, oh man, that seems so painful.
Yeah, no, I actually feel fine. I actually feel totally fine. I'm just like, I just made a mess. You know what I mean? My heart doesn't look good.
So aside from the skin that you left on the trail, like, is it any like bruising or anything like that, you think?
Yeah,
or?
two bruises, but they're not anything serious. It's no big deal.
That's good.
Part of the game.
So to make you perhaps feel a little bit better about yourself,
do you have another this week? I hurt myself.
I don't, Nick. You know what? Okay, so I did text you back that I had like the most tiny this week I hurt myself, which is not worthy of a segment in and of itself, but I will mention I was cutting some brisket that I had spent all day smoking. I had gloves on, and I cut through the brisket onto part of my fingernail, which, like you saw, like it's not that bad, but like I'm not a fingernail person, like, or teeth person. Teeth and fingernails, like, just injuries to those things. Yeah. I'm especially no bueno.
I totally get that.
So I didn't realize it, and then I took my glove off after cutting the brisket, and I had the little slice through my fingernail. That was not great.
No.
Not my favorite moment.
No. I can see
however, that's not what this segment is, Nick.
Let me in.
I have so this week's segment is going to be This Week I Humiliated Myself. This is a group effort between me and my wife.
Oh, good.
So we had, and honestly, Nick, this may be a more frequent addition to the podcast than This Week I Hurt Myself, that I hadn't even thought about, because what a treasure trove it is.
Oh my goodness.
So this week I humiliated myself, and I apologized to my wife because she was the one who had to, bear the brunt
Deal with
of,
it.
Yeah, she had to deal with the problem. But I certainly caused the issue. So skipping a lot of the other parts of this, we wanted to order dinner to be delivered to us. And we're kind of like on the outskirts of our main city nearby. And so it's kind of like expensive to have delivery brought to us, and it takes like a flippin' hour to get anything.
Right.
But they delivered it to the wrong house, which isn't a huge surprise because we occasionally have packages delivered to a neighbor of ours that has the same number but a different street name.
Oh, okay.
If you're not paying attention, it's really easy to think that you are at the right place.
Gotcha.
They're right across the street. Really bad design on
I was gonna
house
say.
naming conventions. But anyways,
May
Go
I
ahead.
real quick interrupt? I just want to say my favorite experience with food delivery stuff mix-ups this year is that I had a food. We used I don't even remember what app, but one of the food delivery apps this year that sends you a picture of your thing being dropped off, and we. It said, "Oh, your thing's been delivered," and we looked outside, and it wasn't there. And we looked at the picture of it, and it was a blurry picture of a shoe in a bush, and I was a little confused. So that was just, my anecdotal great experience. It was like an action shot of a shoe in a bush.
Gosh.
So
Was that what you ordered though? Like
It
they just
was-
delivered to the wrong bush, or?
it might have been the wrong bush. It might. I try to make the directions very clear. Me and my wife live in this great green bush on the left hand side.
Oh gosh. Anyways, so we'll bring it back. Had some stuff happen. We wanted to order dinner, have it delivered. Got delivered to the wrong place. I had just gotten home, picked up my son from his grandparents' house because they were watching him. So I was coming home, noticed that I had got a text right before I left that the food had been delivered, and I expected to show up with the food on the porch. Wasn't there. Ended up telling my wife, like, look, we've had a hard day. I'm sure our food is just over at our neighbor's house. Can you go pick it up? It got delivered like 5 minutes ago or whatever. So some background though, before we dive into the actual thing here. We've not, and I feel super bad about this. We're not really good neighbor people. I don't super know
I'm
my
mediocre
neighbors.
at best. Yeah, I
And
feel that.
I'm the type of person like if you were to ask me, do you think it's a good thing to be close with your neighbors and such? I would certainly say yes. I'm just,
And you not to stroke your ego or anything, but you're a genuinely very easy to get to know, easy to talk to, outgoing person. I don't picture you as struggling to connect with people. You know what I mean? Even small talk kind of ways. But continue. I'm sorry.
yeah, well, okay. To peel the onion back a little farther, I'm an extremely anxious person when it comes to meeting new people. So
Yeah, I feel
I
that.
might be nice and I might be genuine, but I also will 100% be very, very, very anxious the entire time when we're meeting somebody. So I just avoid that.
I get
My wife
that.
is the nicest outgoing person ever that has never met a stranger. But and again, I could put on the face.
You might
I
have
could
you
put on
might have
the
just missed
facade.
part of that expression. You said she's never met a stranger.
Never met a
Oh,
stranger.
I get that expression now. Oh my god.
Have you never? Is that new to you?
It is. I think it is.
Wow, I'm so glad
yeah.
to bring
Okay.
that to you. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. It's actually a good one too. Okay.
welcome.
I'm detracting it too much. Go ahead.
But anyways, so I'm super anxious about meeting new people. I enjoy it's not that I don't enjoy it. I do like meeting new people. I'm just not good at initiating it. But once I'm in the moment, I like it. But it is what it is. So I'm not one to seek it out. And we've lived here for a few years. I've met our neighbor directly next door, but our across from us neighbor that we sometimes get each other's packages. We just deliver them to each other's houses and walk away and never talk about it. But it was dinner
That's a
time.
totally normal human interaction, by the way.
Totally normal. Yeah. We needed dinner. I almost was guaranteed it was going to be over there. So I told Katie, "Hey, do you mind going over there and getting our dinner? I know it might be a little bit awkward. Just knock on their door. So hey, we're not here to steal your packages. We're just here to pick up our dinner that got dropped off your house and deal with that interaction because I have my own stuff that I need to deal with. Again, not interesting for the podcast. So she goes over there at my behest and knocks on the door because there's no food outside. But again, we're very sure that it got delivered there because everything has it to this point.
Right.
And they are like youth workers in our community, apparently, it turns out. And they had thought that like one of their youth kids had ordered dinner for them.
Oh.
And they had already started to eat our tacos.
Oh, that's really sad.
And it was, and so like they, like I guess, and this is all secondhand conversation, they felt literally horrified at what had happened. And I guess there was like no receipt, like, and they gave it to us, like there was no like receipt that had our name on it or anything.
Yeah.
And so like they didn't really know what to do with it. Like, all right, sweet tacos, I guess, from one of our people. And so I started to eat it. And the interaction, I guess, was super awkward at first, but again, my wife has never met a stranger. It all ended good. But then, like when she told me, like my inner anxiety with first time interactions with people, I was living vicariously through the situation. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, Katie, like I have to add them on Facebook and I need to tell them that we will buy them dinner for real. And I'm so sorry that they had to have this interaction. And so, and so it gets even better. I added them on Facebook. I sent them this long message about this entire thing. And then after I had sent it, Katie like wanted to read over my shoulder what I had said, and then realized I had sent it from her account and not as my own. Like this guy that I had looked at, I sent this entire thing as if it was from my wife.
So you made it look like she's a crazy person.
So much more awkward.
Yeah, you made it look like she's a crazy person.
And then I added him from my actual personal account, like me. And said, like, I'm so sorry that this is, again, the most awkward thing ever. And I haven't checked my phone since because I can't possibly bear to check.
Nope. You may need to move. I'm sorry.
You may need to move. Yep, I need to get a new phone. I need to download Zillow. I need to find places near me. Or honestly, not near me. Not that close anyways.
Not that close. No, I agree. Oh, my God.
So this week I humiliated myself, and I assure you, Nick, this will not be the last of this segment. This is a well.
I am quite excited for this new segment, my friend. This is a great idea.
So Nick, we've talked about this, but it's been a hot minute since we have discussed it. And when we first talked about it, it had been kind of a really small thing that had happened that I thought was interesting. And that was maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't know what it was. We had some minor earthquakes here in Kansas.
Okay.
Do you remember us talking about this? Like me asking, like, have you been in earthquakes and such? Because, you're in California now. And I hear you guys have earthquakes. And at the time, it was like these little tiny little tremors that would feel like, I don't know, like someone was behind you and just kind of jiggling your chair a little bit.
Yeah.
Like nothing
that's a
crazy.
Good, yeah.
But before I talk about this, what's your experience with earthquakes?
I've been around for a fair amount, like probably in the neighborhood of like 10 decently sized earthquakes that you could like definitely feel and be like, oh shoot, there is an earthquake currently happening. Nothing crazy or traumatic. I was born after the earthquake series for baseball, whatever that one was called. There's a better name for it than that, but the big one in the Bay Area.
What do earthquakes that you can definitely feel, like what's the definition of that for you?
So like we haven't had things actually knocked off of, shelves and things like that, but I've definitely had things come close. So I don't know if this is like a thing that's normal, but me and a friend in high school were playing a basketball game. Like it could have been a PlayStation game, could have been a GameCube game. I don't really know, but like, NBA Live 06 or some crap, right? And the TV starts shaking and the game starts like super lagging and like getting like static up and down it, and like the whole TV is like shaking and you can hear like the rattling of like if you have any glass on like a desk you can hear the rattling of it. So that's about like the most dramatic feeling I've had.
How long did it last for?
Those
like
are usually
real briefly, or
they're usually pretty short. I think I think that they're usually in the range of like 30 seconds, maybe even a little less.
What magnitude was something like that? Do you remember?
No, not offhand. And I like I'm gonna if I guessed, that they're not it's not a linear scale, right? Seismic scales aren't linear, so like
Yeah.
I'm afraid that if I said a 5.5, that I'd be like an order of magnitude off. You know what I
Oh
mean?
wow, good job! You survived something that nobody survived ever, Nick.
Oh right, exactly right. So I'm afraid that I'd be an order of magnitude off and be way off. So I don't know the exact magnitude.
So in Kansas, I don't know if you've been aware of this. I certainly haven't told you. Again, having spent my entire adult life, or honestly my entire life, the last 30 whatever years, with the only tiniest of tremblings that like were super cool because like, oh, I know what an earthquake feels like now. We've had probably 10 or 12 in the last 2 weeks that have been
that's a lot.
Like noticeably bad rumblings, but two of them, one of which we were in the basement with our kids, like doing Christmas decoration stuff, like getting them out of our storage room. So we were in the basement. Actually, that's not true. I was actually editing this podcast and I don't know what they were doing, but they were in the basement too. So I was editing the podcast and I heard like through my nice headphones, like I heard like this weird like rumbling sound. And then like the earthquake hit us and like it shook. I mean, it didn't shake anything off of shelves or anything, but it was very loud and lots of stuff shaking and my kids freaking out and my wife freaking out in the living room basement area outside of the office that I edit in. And so like long enough that like I was able to get out of my chair and like go out there and like see like, oh my gosh, what has happened? So that was wild.
Yeah, that's dramatic, right? It's very it's. And I think part of what's crazy about it is that it's very sudden. You have like only a moment to process it, like what is it, before it's done, right? So it's very
and I like as father of family, pumped full of adrenaline of like how am I going to save my family from this dumb like which obviously didn't matter. Like it was a 3.8 earthquake, not anything severe, but from a person who's lived in Kansas their entire life where we've not had any of this happen up until recently. Was just I don't know, is very very bizarre. And like the build up to it, like where you could hear it for like a maybe a second before it happened was extremely weird. Again, coming through my headphones over our dumb voices on the podcast, like that was very strange.
I believe it.
And then just literally this morning at 5 a.m. we had another one where I was dead asleep at 5 a.m. Thank goodness. Thank you, kids, for sleeping in past when you typically wake us up, jerks. But like we were completely asleep, and I got woken up again. I think from the sound leading into it. But I just remember like getting shaken so hard from that initial hit, and then like it just shook like crazy for like 4 or 5 seconds, and. I look over at my wife who complains about me snoring occasionally and she's dead asleep. I'm like, what the like here I am, like completely chock full of adrenaline, like wondering if we're gonna die or not. But no, I was wondering, like, is that a thing that you get used to, or is that like is it rare enough even in the places where
so it is pretty rare. It's definitely not like I definitely don't experience it like every two. The old like fears of earthquakes and stereotypes of it, but like I don't experience it every couple weeks. I experience it like you feel an earthquake solidly like maybe once a year. I was looking up magnitudes of stuff to like give myself a frame of reference. And I'm like, oh yeah. So you feel like those small earthquakes. Like once a year where you're like, oh shoot, that was an earthquake, right? Like yeah, it was for sure. And like you have those. For me, I just want to give myself a little credit here because I think I may have actually just remembered it, but I was like looking up like size of major earthquakes in California, and there was a 2007 earthquake in the Bay Area when I lived in the Bay Area that was near where I lived. Called the Alum Rock earthquake that was of magnitude 5.6 when I said 5.5, and I said that we were playing NBA Live 06. So I think this is like actually oddly right. It was NBA Live 06 probably. Anyways, point being, so like like I've been relatively near a 5.6.
Do you know
once
how far away you were from that?
Probably like 20-30 miles from the epicenter. Because it says that it was in the I don't know Alum Rock exactly, but it says it's in Allen Rock Park in San Jose, and I lived probably 15, 20 miles from San Jose. Yeah. So.
Okay. I feel like I could have a little bit of credence. So all of these quakes have been happening in Northeast Wichita, which is like
that's close.
10 miles from where we live.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So like
that's
and they're really shallow too, which I think that matters. I don't know. I'm not an earthquake expert, but
me neither.
I don't know. Honestly, I never knew that you could hear earthquakes before they hit. That was a very scary thing because the only thing I know about hitting you before it hits is a tornado here in Kansas. So.
That's fair too. Yeah, no, I know that experience. It's also very jarring, right? The sound of it is very jarring before it happens, right? It's very interesting.
Like honestly, there's no. I don't think there's any number of these that could happen that I would be like, oh, it's cool. It's an earthquake. All right, Nick. So moving on to some topics that we've actually spent a little bit of time reading up on. You want to share some stuff on high places phenomenon?
Okay. So have you ever had the experience of, and this kind of comes in a bunch of ways. Have you ever had the experience of being at the edge of a cliff or at the top of a high building and having the thought about jumping off? So I'm not saying this in a suicidal kind of way.
No, I've heard of this as the call of the void. Is this like the same thing?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And the call of the void thing, that is so cool. It's a French saying, which French sayings are always much better. But and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of it, but it's l'appel du vide or l'appel du vide, which is again the call of the void. But yes, exactly.
Okay. Before we get started, I'm gonna interrupt this to share with you a very related, very interesting anecdote about my. Like anytime anybody asks me what I want my superpower to be, have I ever told you this, Nick?
No, I don't believe so.
What I think this is the same phenomenon. If I could have a superpower, I would like the ability to go back in time, 5 or 10 seconds after an incident. And here's why. I love the thought of I'm in a parking lot and there's all these cars parked. And I just want to plow into all of them.
Yes.
And then just reverse time and not have it happen. But I would love to see the look on people's faces when I just plow through
oh my God.
40 cars in a parking lot. I don't know.
Right.
It's so wild. Obviously I would never do that, probably, but I would love to know what it would be like. It's crazy.
I completely agree. I think that you're onto something with that thought of that you'd love to know what that would be like. That'd be crazy. That's insane. So I researched this. I Googled this because I've heard that people have this experience as this very universal, that people have these fears of what if I was in this plane and I opened the emergency room door or the emergency door and we all got sucked out, or what if I drove into oncoming traffic, or I jumped off this cliff or whatever. And I've definitely had that, especially with heights. I don't find myself to be a person who is afraid of heights. However, I've definitely had the thought, while on a hike or something, of I could just jump off and die right now. I could just do it. I could just walk at it and just jump. Yep. And I think it's actually very normal, first off. I didn't find a percentage of people that do this, and it's not a suicidal thought. It's not a suicidal.
Yeah, tendency. I literally have Googled whether or not I'm an insane person before for wanting to run in. And honestly, the parking lot example is probably the most tame example of the reason why I want that superpower.
Jeez, Jeff. Okay, man, that's the tame one. Okay, I was gonna say that this is a very normal thing. Yours might not be normal. I'm not sure.
Okay, think about it, Nick. If you could have the opportunity to just drive into somebody's living room, hopefully not hit anybody. I don't want to kill anybody. Don't get me wrong, but if you could just drive into somebody's living room and walk out and hey guys, how you doing? And then hit the reverse button and not ever do that again.
Oh my God, I don't know that I necessarily want that. I'm
how
cool with my weird.
Would it be?
I guess very, but definitely be very novel.
Okay, well maybe I'm on the other end of the spectrum of this is not okay.
It might be. Okay. So sorry. I read. No, you're totally fine, dude. So I read about a study. I didn't read the whole study, obviously, because I'm lazy and I read articles instead of journals. Because
more than the rest of us.
Yeah, fair. But I read an article or two about this study that someone did from Florida State by a researcher named Jennifer Hames. And the study is literally called, and I didn't read too much into this, and we won't dive into this too much, but an urge to jump affirms the urge to live. So The reason, basically, her thought was, and what she found in studying people and polling people about this phenomenon, is that it's not necessarily about suicidal tendencies or depression or anxiety explicitly. Is that so? To quote her, what we found is that people were misinterpreting a safety signal from their brains, which are always firing so fast. In that situation, when you're on a cliff or a bridge or driving past an oncoming car, your mind is actually saying, you're in an unsafe situation, back up from the ledge. People usually obey that signal and back up, but we can misinterpret that and think, I must have reacted that way because I want to jump. There's other people who have different thoughts on this, because it's this. She admittedly said it didn't have the most extensive chance to study this and like go into a huge sample size. She believes that basically the what's happening is you're telling yourself about the situation that you could step into, and that you are then having, your brain is telling you about that situation because it's saying that would be a terrible thing to do and you would die and you should stop getting into that situation. You should get away from that ledge. And it makes a lot of sense to me. What were some other things on this? I apologize that I'm...
Oh, no, you're good. So I've given some very candid examples of how crazy I am. Do you have other things that you felt this in?
My specific one is driving. Like, I get it with driving a lot too. I've definitely thought, like, what if I just sped up like a ton? What if I just went like 100 and just rail off people? And I've also thought about, like, I could just turn by like railing into people. I could just bumper cars it.
Sure could.
Yeah, you could.
You could do anything once.
It's true. It's true. The other things with this, my other notes aren't super especially interesting. I just thought it was like interesting to share the experience, because I didn't really think of it as something that people would have that same experience with. But there's other terms that people have related to it, including intrusive thoughts. And I won't dive into those because I think intrusive thoughts are more explicitly tied to medical anxiety and like PTSD and stuff like that. So I don't want to conflate the two explicitly, but it seems to be similar to, and also it seems to have given the researchers peace of mind that this is actually a thing that is your body trying to, it's one of the few instances of our body actually helping us out and our brain being useful. It's like, hey, evolution told you this is a bad situation, man. Please step away from the ledge.
That's so interesting. Like, I've flown a lot for my job, and I'm not afraid of flying at all. But I there's probably not a flight I've been on where I haven't at least had a thought of like, I'm gonna die, like 100%. Like, there's no way I'm gonna survive like flying through this metal thing over the skies, and I'm gonna land fine. Like, I'm dead.
You're dead. You're dead.
And then it goes away. But like, I don't know.
I had a joke with my friend last year when I was flying a lot. I had a joke with an old coworker I don't work with anymore, but about this, the same thing of but I'd text him and tell him about like my flight or whatever, and I would say, but if I die, I die. So don't feel like you have to pick me up. Or if I die, I die. So
right, there's a chance you're off the hook. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nick. This, I think, is the point where we should probably draw the line.
Fair.
But yeah, I've had some fun doing some TikTok and some Instagram things this week. If you want to follow us, you can check us out on basically anywhere at TaiWasApp. You can check us out at TaiWasApp.com. If you want to share it with a friend, I've actually talked to a couple people again recently.
Nice.
Our audio is less bad, it turns out, from some feedback I've gotten. And
you say our, I will fully own to the fact that this is on me. My audio quality has been the struggle.
But the comedy is just as bad as ever, so
that's always going to be there.
Yep.
It's not fixable. No, yeah, that's TaiWasApp, TYWSAP. And what do we have? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And we have TaiWasApp.com, right?
That's right.
Very cool.
Nick, thank you for potting with me.
You're welcome. This has been the year we started the podcast. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. And remember, Nick, our subtitle this year is, what is it,
Kickback.
Kickback.
This is the year we started the podcast to Kickback. I butchered that.